Podcast. The Brutal Intermission Podcast.
Hello. How are you doing? I'm Bruce.
Hey, Avi. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
What's up, Avi?
Guys out in San Francisco?
Yeah, technically, I'm in South San Francisco right now, but live in Oakland. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So far enough away from all the nonsense that's going on over there?
Yeah. It's a lot going on in California in the last few
Yeah.
years.
I feel like there's a lot going on in California all the time anyway, though, right?
True. True.
Anyway, thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
can
thanks
just
for
jump
having
right in if you want.
Sure. Whatever works.
Sure. Your music has been described as a white hot blaze against darkness, with each song representing an epic battle. How might the band's mythic approach to songwriting serve as a metaphor for personal struggles or societal struggles, even?
That's a good question. The main lyricist is Van, who's not on the interview today. So he'd probably be the best one to take that up. But I do know that one of the, I guess, choices behind how the lyrics are written is to be purposefully vague and keep it kind of in the realm of mythology and iconography and symbolism, and that they do have more personal meanings in many cases, but that, like a lot of bands and artists, the point is not to be too specific and obvious about what it's about. So
Right.
it's kind of wrapped up in a more story framework.
Is there, and you may not be able to answer this, and that's fine, but is there like a message or a takeaway you want your fans to walk away from after listening to a Nite record?
I mean, I think there's a common recurring theme that Van has told us. Like, Scott and I both joined on after he kind of formed the idea for the band in his head. But one recurring phrase is Nite stands with those who struggle, like those who feel oppressed, those who grew up with adversity. So I think like any fan that's experienced that in their lives, or anyone really, like if they listen to Nite music and feel connected with that idea, it's like, hey, we're with you, we're connected with you, like you're not alone. I think that's a win.
Yeah. There's a
Do
lot
you
of
feel
like
a sense of
underdog narrative.
Sorry.
No, that's great.
Do you feel a sense of responsibility then to promote that message, or is it just how you guys feel? And if people get on board, they get on board?
I don't think, at least to date, that we've been too like whatever the band persona is publicly, like in interviews or in promotion online or Instagram or whatever. I don't think we've been too message focused. It's been more just music and let it speak for itself. But I don't know if Avi has a different take, but that's my read.
Yeah, I think you're right, Scott. And yeah, I mean, as far as like say like what the band looks like on Instagram or in press releases and all that, that's one thing. And then I'd like to think that you come to hang out with us at the merch table, it's a whole not a different deal, but like a little more of a personal connection, and people get to know us a little bit better. They find out that, the stuff that like say Van went through growing up in Athens, and or me as like a brown kid in Orange County, like all sorts
Right.
of stuff. And so I think they realize that it's like, oh yeah, a lot of what we're talking about in the lyrics is kind of coming from a personal place, and it's coming from like actual lived in experience. And so, there's always this kind of funny disconnect between what you present on liner notes
Sure.
or or in a press release, et cetera, versus the people you meet off stage. And we try to be ourselves, and we try to be genuine, and try to be like, hey, like we're real,
I think the metal community is all embracing anyway, right? So I think that's a perfect thing. It doesn't matter where you come from, what you look like, whatever.
Right. The metal is the thing, right? Everyone just wants to connect about.
Right. You bond over the riff, and then everything else is whatever.
Yeah, that's the thing that you focus on. So, which is awesome.
Yeah. All right. So the album's more is more philosophy adds heft and showmanship, and it contrasts with what modern trends toward mainstream and minimalism and restraint do. In what ways can embracing excess and grandeur in music become an act of defiance?
Uh, it's tough with how just the number of bands, the number of artists there are now. It's hard to say anything really stands out.
So
But
much
obviously
noise.
but we're trying, to. I'll get to the excess part in a second, but I think just our choice to be, I guess the thing that we always say that we are, which is old school '80s heavy metal mixed with kind of a modern or a gruff vocal approach is kind of the
Mhm.
basic formula. And depending on who's coming to the music, they might think some of that is excessive or extreme or over the top, or they might not, because in some ways we're very traditional compared to like a tech death band that's just super,
Right.
or some Cthulhu, horror monster band. But I would say that we have excess in we have a lot of guitar solos, and that's the thing that we want to kind of put forward. Certainly, other metal does too, but I think maybe in our
A
scene,
lot of places or a lot of bands are stepping away from that, right? I mean, that was like a standard in the 80s and the 90s.
right,
You had
you
a
had to
guitar,
have it,
right?
yeah,
Even like you go to a show and you had to have the guitar solo.
right,
And that's all
separate,
sort of taken a back step now. I don't think you see many solos,
not as
or
much, no,
traditional solos anyway, like Jake Lee ripping or something.
right, certainly, yeah, and a lot of the soloing has become almost like athletic exercises, and there isn't a lot of the like kind of classic melodic, Jake Lee type solo or something. So I think we're trying to bring that back, and yeah, I'll be thoughts on excess.
I want
Yeah,
to jump
well,
in for 1 second though. You're not easily offended, right?
I hope not.
I often equate a lot of that stuff that you're talking about to like fretboard masturbation, right? Just get out there and
Sure.
play as much shit as you can in the 4/4 and try and impress somebody. But you're right, somebody like Jake or Randy or whatever, really knew that sometimes less is more.
Right, or just at least have a melodic idea or have a choice to like a little the cliche
Right.
song within a song. The solo should be its own thing. I think one of our strengths and one of Van's strengths as the main songwriter is he writes amazing guitar melodies, whether it's like the hook for the song or even the lead, the feature.
Right.
I think they're memorable and they're not just like sweet picking, like
Yeah.
video game music. So yeah.
Sorry, Ave, I interrupted you, but
oh, you're all good. Well, I was just gonna say excess is a interesting choice of word, right? Because, and again, you said like the 80s, etc., that kind of definition of musical excess. There was also like what the sex, drugs, and rock and roll excess too, right?
so I grew up in there, and I mean that's my, I guess you kind of identify with where you grew up, and that's where I grew up in the 80s. So yes, that I loved it. That
Yeah,
whole, excess, debauchery, over the top, everything. And then you have to top the next guy to even stand out.
totally. Well, in our case, yeah, I mean, we may not be like excessive personally. Like, I think we're all like fairly straight laced as far as our extracurricular activities go. But besides the rock and roll, plenty of rock and roll. But as far as like musical excess goes, like Scott's saying, we love our guitar solos. I mean, Pat's swinging his hair around left and right on stage. Like, when we have the ability to do it at shows and we can bring our full stage setup, we try to like bring a full stage setup. Scott and I are jumping around back and forth, like Van's running around everywhere too. We try to celebrate that because it's cool. We think it's cool. Like
Yes,
we want to give
absolutely.
yeah, and we also want to give people a visually entertaining show. I know at least for me, like my first several bands that I played in here in the Bay Area, they came from a time of like extreme black metal, stare at your shoes, like don't really rock
Right,
out a whole lot, like get fog in so you can't even see the band
right.
kind of thing. And so you're right. And so us trying to be a little bit, again, I don't want to say excessive, but like just
Yeah.
celebrate the exuberance a bit. There is some defiance in there. There is some like, okay, we're not too cool for school. We want to
Right.
entertain you. We want to put on something that makes us feel like teenagers jumping on our beds
Yeah.
again.
Do you shoot, I lost my train of thought.
It's okay.
80s, I don't even know. I can move into my next question. If it comes to me, I'll just jump in. How can heavy metal, especially the more extreme stuff like you guys play, it's often associated with darkness and aggression, but how can it be harnessed as a force for personal empowerment, especially in today's world, right?
Yeah, I think Nite is I don't know if we're leaning into it, but I think that is kind of a key part. We touched on it a few questions ago, but I think this underdog kind of raise people out of struggle or meet people and give them hope, I guess, is kind of a through line through a lot of the Nite stuff, even though the image is, typical heavy metal, dark, nighttime,
Right.
sometimes the metaphors are horror mythology kind of, spooky stuff. But the actual content and a lot of the vibe, even live, that we give off is more, positive or empowering. As far as, I don't know if I can get into specifics of how it translates, but that is
Right.
one of the things that we're going for. Avi?
Yeah, well, I mean, one thing, like, I don't think I'm breaking the metaphor, revealing, like, breaking the fourth wall too much here by saying that in our lyrics, evil does not win.
Right.
In Crow, it's stand strong, my sons of Farland Cove. In Skull, it's this skull will never be yours. Like, good wins. Like, you find strength in yourself and you succeed. Like, you triumph. And so, there's dark imagery here. There's cults, and even the cults, it's like it's more about togetherness. It's more about community. It's like, yeah, like cults are scary and evil, but we're in it together. Like, and so, yeah, we are trying to like give off that sense of empowerment. It's like, no, the bad guy does not win. Like, you are the protagonist here, and you will succeed. Like
Right.
that.
And I think stuff like that, even in extreme music, no matter where you are, is very needed these days, right? Turn on the TV and you feel overwhelmed and done, and you need something like that.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
So I remember what I was going to say. You mentioned that, you're a little high energy on stage and that sort of thing. So are you writing then with the stage in mind, like how it's going to come across in front of an audience?
I would say a little bit, yeah. Not in a super specific, like, let's have a breakdown here kind of way,
Right.
because that's not really the style that we do. But yeah, the more, we don't have a ton of touring experience. We're working on that, but even certainly from the second album to this one, the third album that just came out, it's always kind of just another factor there where you're like, how will this play live? How will we pull this off live? And will these parts connect with people? And even down to choruses, like you want it to be a hook anyway. We like, that's what the kind of songs we write. We want hooky songs, but
Right.
then can we make it even more catchy by having it the kind of thing you only need to hear once? Like, oh, it's three words and you can shout them like right back at the at the band. That kind of stuff, just like what can really connect with people and pull it off.
Yeah, and I think and this is maybe just a virtue of, Scott kind of alluded to this, but it's like this kind of just falls in what we like, the kind of music we like to make anyway.
Yeah.
So, especially coming from like hyper extreme bands where it's just like blast beats, it's kind of hard as an audience member to like feel a connection to like a 200 BPM blast beat or something like that. Both like, and on the basis, so it's like both from like the low end in your chest perspective, it just turns into
Right.
like a. And so, given that we like, these kind of classic metal inspired stuff with, Maiden, Ozzy, Priest, etc., there is so much space in that kind of riffing and in that kind of drumming and in that kind of like rhythm section work that we just kind of naturally get the ability to run around a little bit. And, it takes a little bit of coordination, like, oh, my feet are moving here, my hands are doing this. But it's totally a virtue of the music we want to make anyway. So yeah, I mean, I think Scott and I have both come from like more extreme metal bands too, where we had to stay focused on playing
Right.
9,000 notes a minute. But given that we have the opportunity to make music that speaks to us, that where we can kind of do like some down picking grooving at like 120 BPM or something like that, right?
Right.
It's like, oh, look at where I can go now. I can do all sorts of stuff. And so we take the
Right.
opportunity. Why wouldn't we?
Do you think about differentiating the albums from album to album so you're not writing the same Nite record, but while also not trying to alienate your core fans, right? Because you don't want to write the same record and you want to improve and maybe expand or do whatever, but do you concern yourself with what the fans are gonna, if they're gonna take that journey with you?
Avi, do you want to go first? I feel like I'm just stepping on you.
No, it's all good. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So here's the thing. It's like with I've been involved with two of the three records now. And both times it's like we kind of went in with a thematic vision saying like, okay, like Voice of the Crony Moon, our last one, it was like, this is our sci-fi concept record, and we were trying to write shorter songs there. This one, it was like, okay, we've done the sci-fi glistening like shiny thing. Let's go
Right.
underground. Let's go grimy. And by virtue of Van being the main songwriter, it's pretty damn hard for us to deviate too hard from what makes Nite sound like Nite. And there's
Right.
been songs that have come through the pipe, either from Van or from others, that like we had to sit down and look at it and be like, we don't know if this is a Nite song. We don't know if this is like what this band is about for a variety of
Oh,
reasons.
really? Yeah.
Yeah, like it could be anything for like maybe it's a little too proggy and weird. It doesn't really give us that same kind of fist like pounding feeling that
Right.
we love from the band. And so yeah, there's always this constant check-in is like, is this true to ourselves? Is this true to what this band is about?
Right.
And with the record as a whole, yeah, there is like a thematic continuity that we want each album to have. And so there's like, God, maybe 30 or 40 or 50 songs even demoed for a record. We choose the best of the bunch that we think makes sense with each other. And that kind of has
Okay.
this common thread going on.
Fair enough.
And the sometimes, like Avi said, we have like a loose idea, not a strict blueprint, but like a loose idea for like a tone or just like a core idea or vibe, even just a visual that we want to start, but you never end up exactly there. And
Right.
it kind of like Avi said, as you pick the songs, the album kind of takes shape just by what you're selecting. But your question gets to the heart of like, I mean, I think every band struggles with this. Once you have more than one record, it's like you want to progress because you're always pushing at the edges of what your little,
Right.
sphere
You don't
of
want to
it
write
are.
Detroit Rock City again.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you are, I mean, of course, some bands can do that every time, but we don't want to be
Right.
that band. So, you do want to push against the barrier a little bit, but, unless you really want to, sometimes bands take a big swing, but unless you really get an itch to do something different, we do want to stay true to what we are. And Avi made a good point that with Van, he has such a clear focus and is the driving creative force that kind of anything he writes pretty much sounds like Nite, except we have some room around the edges to
Right. To add your flourishes or whatever. Right.
Yeah, totally.
Nice. I know you said you're hoping to get out more. So is there any concrete plans coming up, or is that still in talks? Oh,
Oh boy.
Avi's
So-
rubbing his hands.
Yes. So
go for it.
in just a few days, we're going to start a 2-week tour with Savage Master, who are good buds of ours. And it's going to be all over the East Coast and kind of like the Midwest-ish kind of thing.
are you coming to Richmond?
We're the closest to Richmond is we're doing Raleigh, and then
Yeah, that's still
which I know isn't
far.
that close, and then and DC. So DC would probably be
okay.
the closest. Yeah,
I know I saw Savage Master here not too long ago, maybe
Oh, nice.
within the last year.
yeah.
Maybe
they tour
less.
a lot. They tour
Yeah.
a lot. Yeah. Yeah, we're super stoked, and yeah, that starts in just we fly out in a couple days, and it's gonna be great because Nite hasn't. We've done a little bit of touring on the Western U.S. where the band is based, and through to about Texas to about that side,
Right.
but we have not done any of these cities, so it's all gonna be new for us as
Nice.
this band anyway. So yeah, New York and up into Canada, and then back down through Chicago and Atlanta all the way down. So yeah, it's gonna be really fun.
How do you prepare for a stretch that long?
Oh, God.
very, very pertinent question. Right now,
Or is it too late?
yeah, right now I'm like looking at all the stuff I got to pack and complicating things a little bit. I actually relocated earlier this year to a different part of the country, so we're not even rehearsing in the same place anymore. But these days, that's so common. It's almost unusual to find a band that does all live in the same town anymore. So yeah, we'll see. We're making it work. I think our excitement, famous last words, but I think our excitement and adrenaline will kind of carry us through. And there'll probably be moments in those, 15 show run that we'll be like, what are we doing? Why do we do this? But
Right.
I think overall it's going to be really fun.
It's for the $1 million budgets.
Right. We're in it for the cash, obviously.
Right. Anyway, are you still going to plan on releasing singles like the typical industry model every 6 weeks or something, or?
Well, the album's out, so I don't think we have anything. We may circle back and do. We had a few leading up to it. We had 3 singles, I guess, leading up to the album, and the album came out, and we may circle back if we get the budget and do like a video, kind of a, sometimes you'll see a band do a video like 6 months to a year later or something.
Yeah.
To kind of, put the album back on the radar. But
everyone's got
right
like
now,
such short attention spans. You gotta keep
it's just
something going.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we're pretty lucky in that like a lot of our fans and also like our peer bands that have fans that are similar to ours, like they love physical products, they love the full
Yes.
record. They do have better attention spans than like your average music listener,
Yeah.
I'd like to think.
Yeah.
So we can kind of count on them to be like, we'll give you a cool package with awesome artwork, like a whole thematic vision, 8 songs that we all stand by, and not just like 4 minutes and then done, move on 6 months later.
How much time do you put into the art of sequencing, right? Because that's a whole art in itself, I think, because you got to create like the journey, right? The ebbs and flows and all that bullshit. How much time do you put into that?
We spend a good amount of time on it, and down to like, it often, some things make sense and maybe we all agree on like these 3 in a row or this section, and then we'll totally have different opinions on like just one, this one should be last, and then 2 people, like we'll be divided, and eventually,
Right.
we sort it out. But yeah, sequencing, the older I get, it's kind of like a pet thing for me. Like I will complain about albums. I'll be like, this album is great, except they totally got the songs wrong. Like they totally put the songs in the wrong order. It's so important. It's so important.
Yeah, I mean, you look back at some of the classic records, that I'm still a fan of, and they flow. Like, I mean, Operation Mindcrime, any other way makes zero sense.
Totally. And like there are tricks to all of it, but like, the second and third song, they matter so much. They matter as much as the first song, because
Right.
if you don't have like a momentum to draw people in, sometimes bands, depends on your genre, I guess, but like for a lot of stuff I listen to, bands will kill the momentum when they'll put like a real slow song at track 3 or something. I'm like, what are you doing? Like
Right.
you're losing everybody.
Yeah. But I think that's a really lost art, because I mean, I used to be an engineer as well, and I remember, people spending time making different mixtapes
Yeah.
with
try
songs
it.
in different order, and go listen to them in the car and go, does that work? Does this work? Or scrap it all and let's do it again.
We totally did that with Cult of the Serpent Sun too.
Right.
Like we all 4 of us made our playlist mixtapes, so to speak. And this was while Van was working on rough mixes and sending them over, and we were checking performances and all that good stuff. And yeah, so we all made a bunch of playlists. I will say, for the most part, I think we got to our final track listing a little bit quicker than the last time that I remember. So we were starting to kind of, the 4 of us kind of developed this kind of singular vision of what we appreciate about like
Hey,
a
that's
track.
nice.
At the same time, though, I think there was like a long weekend or something like that when Patrick, our drummer, he like went on to Joshua Tree or like for a short vacation or something like that. So it was like Scott and Van and myself. We blew up the group chat with like playlist suggestions and track list suggestions. And so we came to a thing. We're like, okay, yeah, it sounded pretty cool. All right, great. Like Pat comes back from vacation like just a few days later or something like that.
Yep.
He
Nope.
sends us a message saying, what are you guys doing here? No, Cult of the Serpent Sun. That's got to be track 1. And then he like made a playlist like, guys, come on, this is it. And we looked at it. We were just like, oh, okay, actually, this kind of works.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, yeah, and sometimes it just means you need a fresh perspective too, because I think what it showed was that 3 of us like all kind of went in a circle a little bit. We were like
Right.
kind of honed
You're
in
too
on the
close
side.
to it.
Yep.
We're
Yeah.
too
It's
close to
right
the
here.
yeah. And we got like so fixated on just like, okay, this with a couple of tweaks here and there, we needed to kind of get a 180
Right.
by Pat to see like, oh, this works. Like, yeah, we're stoked on this too.
Right. Perfect. So lastly, then, if fans want to find you, where can they do so? All your socials or websites or whatever.
You probably have them better memorized than I do, Bobby.
Yeah, so I mean, Instagram for sure. You're gonna get a reply back from one of us in the band. Yeah, we're all over that, posting our cats and dogs and all that good stuff. But the band page, Instagram's great. The band Facebook is great. We have an email too if you want to find us there. Yeah, and Bandcamp too if you want to support the band by buying some copies as well. If you're not able to catch a show, or record stores are awesome too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say Instagram and Facebook are probably the 2 easiest ways to get a hold of the band as like a unit.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And we're
And-
at Nite Metal. So, and also if you just search Nite Metal, Nite Metal. And that's our handle. And you can find our Bandcamp and everything too. And obviously we're on Spotify and all the usual streaming things. And yeah.
Thank you for taking the time, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Hey, be well.
Yeah. Take care.
Cheers. Bye.